Captain Do-hyun stood at the window of his ship, the Persistence, watching the stars drift by. He held his favorite metal coffee mug, the one with small dents from the time he had thrown it at a pirate who tried to board his ship. The hot liquid inside would have killed most alien species, but to him, it was just his morning coffee. "Captain," called First Officer Jai-ho from his station, "the Galactic Council sent another warning about our patrol route." He tried not to smile as he read the message. "They say we're scaring the peaceful trading ships." Do-hyun took another sip of his coffee. "Tell them we're just following their own safety rules. After all, we're just dangerous Deathworlders who need constant watching." The bridge crew laughed. They all knew the joke. Humans came from Earth, a planet that most alien species considered too harsh to live on. High gravity, extreme temperatures, dangerous predators, and worst of all, bacteria and viruses everywhere. To the rest of the galaxy, humans were tough, scary creatures who could survive things that would kill most aliens instantly. "Remember when that Regellian ambassador visited Earth?" asked Yun Seo from her communication station. "He needed 3 environmental suits just to step outside, and he still fainted when he saw a squirrel." Taiwan, the chief engineer, looked up from his screens. "At least he made it to Earth. The last diplomatic team turned around when they learned we drink fermented drinks for fun." The Persistence led a fleet of 12 human ships. They were smaller than most alien vessels but packed with technology that humans had built to survive their deadly homeworld. The ships could take hits that would destroy alien craft, and their crews could keep fighting even when life support was damaged. "Status report," Do-hyun called out, walking to the center of the bridge. "All systems normal," reported Min-ji from security. "Though I did catch some alien ships taking the long way around our patrol route again." "Of course they did," said Do-hyun. "Heaven forbid they get too close to the scary humans." The truth was, humans weren't nearly as dangerous as the aliens thought. But after years of being treated like monsters, humanity had learned to use that fear to their advantage. Their ships looked rough and threatening, with sharp angles and dark colors that made alien species nervous. "Message from Earth Defense Command," Yun Seo announced. "They want us to check out some strange readings at the edge of our space. Might be smugglers trying to sneak past the quarantine zone." Do-hyun nodded. The quarantine zone was another joke, a space buffer the Galactic Council had created to protect other species from humans. In reality, it gave Earth's ships the perfect excuse to patrol wherever they wanted. "Plot a course," he ordered, "and someone wake up Hejun in weapons. Tell him to run a check on our systems. You never know when we might need to look extra scary." As the Persistence changed direction, Do-hyun watched his crew work. They were the best of the best, chosen not just for their skills, but for their ability to think creatively. In a galaxy full of species that followed every rule and regulation, humans had learned that sometimes the best weapon was unpredictability. "Sir," called Jai-ho, "long-range sensors are picking up something big. Really big." Do-hyun walked to the sensor display. The screen showed hundreds of dots moving in perfect formation. Too perfect. That could only mean one thing: Regellian ships. The most bureaucratic species in the galaxy, who needed permission forms filled out in triplicate just to change their course. "Well," said Do-hyun, finishing his coffee with a smile, "this should be interesting. Battle stations, everyone. Let's show them why Deathworlders have a reputation." The red alert lights came on, but nobody on the bridge seemed worried. After all, they were humans, the galaxy's most feared species, even if they didn't quite deserve the title. The bridge of the Persistence fell silent as 300 Regellian ships surrounded the human patrol fleet. The enemy vessels gleamed like new toys, their hulls spotless and decorated with official government stamps of approval. "They're hailing us," Yun Seo announced from her station. "Audio and video." Captain Do-hyun straightened his slightly wrinkled uniform. "Put them on screen. Let's meet our new friends." The main screen lit up to show a Rigelian commander named Hansol. Like all Rigelians, he had pale blue skin and wore a uniform with so many medals it looked like a metal shop had exploded on his chest. "Attention dangerous Deathworlders," Hansol said, reading from a tablet. "According to Galactic Council Resolution 47,292b, Section 12, Paragraph 7, you are hereby ordered to surrender your vessels for immediate inspection and quarantine." Do-hyun pretended to think about it. "That's an interesting offer. Let me check with my crew." He turned to his bridge. "What do you all think?" "I think their ships are too shiny," said Ta-Won from engineering. "They've never seen real combat." Jai-Ho was already analyzing the enemy fleet on his screen. "Captain, you need to see this. Their battle formations. They're exactly like the diagrams in the basic training manual. No variations at all." "How many of their weapons are actually pointed at us?" Do-hyun asked quietly. "About 60%, Min-ji reported from security. They're following the standard threat display pattern. Page 42 of the Galactic Military Code." The Rigelian commander cleared his throat. "We are waiting for your response. Please use Form 62C for your surrender declaration." "Form 62C?" Do-hyun asked, trying not to smile. "I'm afraid we only have Form 62B on hand. Would that work?" The question sent the Rigelian bridge crew into chaos. They started flipping through manual pages and arguing about proper procedure. "Captain," Jai-Ho said suddenly, his eyes wide, "I found something interesting in their public records. These ships, none of them have ever fought a real battle. Their entire military experience comes from simulations and training exercises." Do-hyun walked closer to Jai-Ho's screen. "You're telling me we're facing 300 ships that have never actually fired a shot in anger?" "Not just that," Jai-Ho continued. "All their battle plans are based on theoretical models. They've never had to adapt to real combat conditions." On the main screen, the Rigelians were still debating about forms. Two junior officers had pulled out a rulebook the size of a small table. "Perhaps we can help speed things up," Do-hyun said loudly. "Hansol, what if I told you we're carrying extremely dangerous Earth coffee on board? The kind humans drink hot." Several Rigelian officers gasped. One dropped his tablet. That's impossible," Hansol stuttered. "The regulations clearly state that no Class 7 biological hazards are allowed in this sector." "Oh, we have lots of them," Do-hyun continued cheerfully. "Would you like to know what we eat for breakfast? We have these things called spicy peppers that—" "Stop," Hansol shouted. "This is biochemical warfare. We must convene an emergency committee to discuss appropriate countermeasures." Do-hyun turned to his crew and winked. "Sang-mai, how long does it take to convene a Rigelian emergency committee?" "According to their regulations, minimum of 4 hours," Sang-mai replied from her station. "Plus 2 hours for proper documentation." "Perfect." Do-hyun faced the screen again. "Commander Hansol, while you organize your committee, would you like us to wait here? We could make some coffee while we wait." The Rigelian commander's face turned a lighter shade of blue. He started frantically pressing buttons on his control panel. "All ships, maintain formation," he ordered. "Begin emergency committee protocols, and someone find me the proper form for dealing with caffeinated Deathworlders." As the transmission ended, Do-hyun's crew tried to hold back their laughter. "Orders, Captain," Jai-Ho asked, grinning. "Tell all ships to prepare for Operation Chaos Theory," Do-hyun said. "Let's show these bureaucrats why humans have a reputation for being unpredictable." The 12 human ships powered up their engines. Against them were 300 of the galaxy's finest untested vessels, crewed by aliens who had never faced a real enemy. It was going to be an interesting day. Yun Seo's fingers flew over her communications console as she intercepted the Rigelian fleet's transmissions. Her eyes widened with each new message she decoded. "Captain, you won't believe this," she said, trying not to laugh. They're organizing themselves into 30 different committees just to decide how to attack us. Do-hyun sipped his fresh cup of coffee. Really? Tell me more. They have a weapons trajectory committee, a battle formation ethics board, and... She paused, double-checking her screen. A special committee for determining appropriate victory celebration protocols. They're planning their victory party already. Ta-won asked from his engineering station. That's a bit presumptuous. Actually, Yun-seo said, they're debating whether it would be culturally insensitive to celebrate beating Deathworlders. They're worried it might hurt our feelings. The bridge crew couldn't hold back their laughter this time. Even the usually serious Minji cracked a smile at her security station. Captain, Ta-won called out suddenly. Remember how we never told the Galactic Council about our ship's real capabilities? Do-hyun nodded. It had been standard practice for years to let aliens think human ships were less advanced than they really were. Every time Earth submitted ship specifications to the Council, they left out a few important details. Well, Ta-won continued with a grin. I just scanned their shields. They're using the exact counter-frequencies they think would work against our official weapons. But our actual weapons are completely different. Do-hyun finished. Perfect. Time to start Operation Chaos Theory. Ji-ho, send the orders to the other ships. The 12 human vessels began to move. Instead of staying in the defensive formation the Regellians expected, they scattered in different directions. It was like throwing 12 cats into a room full of perfectly organized paper stacks. They're panicking, Yun-seo reported, listening to the enemy communications. The formation committee is demanding an emergency session to approve a new pursuit pattern, but the emergency session committee hasn't approved their request for a meeting yet. Incoming transmission from the Regellian flagship, Sangmi announced. Commander Hansol appeared on screen again, looking flustered. This is highly irregular. Your ships must maintain proper formation for us to engage you in battle according to regulations. Oh, I'm sorry, Do-hyun said innocently. Which regulation covers 12 ships against 300? I must have missed that chapter in the manual. Well, that is. Hansol frantically flipped through his rulebook. There must be a protocol for this. While you look that up, Do-hyun said, Ta-won, why don't you show them what our engines can really do? Tai-won's fingers danced across his console. The persistence suddenly accelerated to speeds that weren't supposed to be possible according to their official specifications. The ship spun and weaved through the Regellian formation, causing 2 enemy vessels to crash into each other as they tried to follow. They're filing incident reports for the collision. Yun-seo exclaimed, still monitoring enemy communications. Both ships have stopped to document the damage and fill out insurance forms. Sir, Ji-ho reported, the other human ships are in position, ready to execute Phase 2. Do-hyun stood up from his captain's chair. Let's give them something really interesting to put in their reports. Hajun, target their command ship's communications array. Use the weapons we're not supposed to have. Hajun grinned at his weapons console. With pleasure, Captain. Loading the officially non-existent torpedoes now. On the main screen, they could see the Regellian ships still trying to organize themselves. Some were forming neat lines for proper battle formation, while others were stuck in holding patterns waiting for approval to change course. You know, Do-hyun said to his crew, I almost feel bad about this. Almost. He raised his coffee mug. Fire when ready, Hajun. Let's show them why you should never believe everything you read in official documents. The Persistence's weapons powered up, glowing with energy that, according to all official records, shouldn't exist. Phase 2 of Operation Chaos Theory was about to begin, and the Regellians hadn't even finished processing the paperwork for Phase 1. The space around the human ships erupted in chaos. Hajun's non-existent torpedoes streaked toward the Regellian command ship, trailing beautiful blue energy that wasn't mentioned in any official document. They're trying to raise their shields, Minji reported from her security station. But first they need approval from the Shield Activation Committee. How long will that take? Do-hyun asked, watching the torpedoes approach their target. According to the regulations, Minji checked her screen. Minimum of 20 minutes. They need 3 different signatures and a risk assessment form. The torpedoes struck the Regelian command ship's communications array. There was no explosion, no destruction. Instead, the array simply shut down, covered in a strange blue coating. "What did you hit them with?" Jaiho asked, staring at his readings. Hajun smiled. "Something we cooked up in the weapon labs. It's basically super strong space bubble gum." Their communications array is now completely covered in it. On the main screen, they could see the Regelian crew trying to deal with this unexpected situation. Several officers were taking pictures of the blue substance while others frantically flipped through their manuals. Incoming message from one of their support ships, Yunseo announced. "They're asking us to wait while they convene an emergency unknown substance committee." "How considerate of them," Do-hyun said. "Minji, time to use your special talent. Show them why you're the best security chief in the fleet." Minji's fingers flew over her console. She had spent years studying Rigelian military protocols, not to follow them, but to find their weaknesses. Now she was about to use that knowledge. "Sending out false command signals now," she said, making them think they're getting orders from 50 different commanding officers. The effect was immediate. The Regelian fleet began to move in different directions as ships received conflicting orders. Some formed perfect circles because their regulations said that was the proper formation for confusion. Others stopped completely, waiting for clarification from the proper authorities. 3 ships just collided while trying to find the right form to fill out for changing course. Yunseo reported, still monitoring enemy communications. They're now debating whether to file it under Accident Report Form 27 or Unexpected Maneuver Incident Report 15B. "Their whole command structure is falling apart," Jaiho said, watching the chaos on his tactical display. "They can't decide who's in charge since Commander Hansol's communications are covered in space bubble gum." Do-hyun stood up and walked to the front of the bridge. "Time for the next phase. Sang-mei, launch our secret weapon." Sang-mei grinned and pressed a button on her console. The Persistence's computers began broadcasting thousands of meeting requests to every ship in the Regelian fleet. Each request was marked urgent and mandatory, with completely different scheduled times. "They'll have to process each request according to regulations," Sang-mei explained. "Their computers won't let them ignore official meeting notifications." The effect was devastating. Regelian crews stopped fighting to update their calendar apps. Officers argued about which meetings took priority. Some ships actually started heading back to base, their captains insisting they couldn't miss the quarterly budget review. "Captain," Ta-1 called out, "the other human ships report they're in position for Phase 3. Do-hyun nodded and picked up his coffee mug. It was still warm, just the way he liked it. "You know what's really going to drive them crazy?" he asked his crew. "We're about to win this battle, and we haven't filled out a single form." "Actually," Jaiho said with a straight face, "I've been keeping track. According to their regulations, they've broken exactly 2,347 protocols just trying to fight us. They'll have to file separate reports for each violation." "Send them a message," Do-hyun ordered. "Tell them we're willing to wait if they need time to fill out all that paperwork." The bridge crew laughed as they watched the Regelian fleet continue to tangle itself in red tape. Phase 3 was about to begin, and the enemy was already drowning in their own bureaucracy. Phase 3 began with Hejun launching what he called his Form 27B/6 missiles. These weapons weren't designed to destroy ships. They were made to cause maximum confusion. "Direct hit on 20 enemy ships," Hejun reported with a grin. "The missiles are uploading our special software now." The crew watched as the affected Regelian ships suddenly started broadcasting every single regulation in their database over all channels. Their screens filled with countless rules, procedures, and guidelines. "My favorite part is coming," Sang-mei said, watching her monitor. "Wait for it." Suddenly, the Regelian ship's outer hulls lit up, displaying giant animated pop-up messages. Each one demanded immediate attention to various regulatory updates and policy changes. They can't close the pop-ups, Yun Seo explained, trying not to laugh. According to their own rules, all policy updates must be read and acknowledged before any other action can be taken. Do-hyun watched as more Regelian ships fell into confusion. How long will it take them to read all those regulations? At their normal processing speed, Jae-ho calculated quickly. About 3 weeks. The enemy fleet was in chaos. Some ships were spinning in circles, their crews too busy reading updates to steer properly. Others had completely stopped, their captains insisting they needed to study each regulation carefully to ensure compliance. "Sir," Minji called from her station, "you need to see this. The Regelians are trying something new." On the main screen, they could see several enemy ships forming a new pattern. They were trying to create what their manual called an aggressive documentation formation. "They're going to try to paperwork us to death," Tadwan said, reading the scans. "They're preparing to launch their bureaucracy bombs." True to his word, the Regelian ships began firing what looked like glowing filing cabinets into space. Each one contained thousands of forms that needed to be filled out in triplicate. "Incoming transmission," Yun Seo announced. "It's from their new acting deputy sub-commander for temporary crisis management." The screen showed a different Regelian officer, his uniform covered in hastily attached temporary rank badges. "Attention human vessels. According to Code 7249X, you must complete these forms before continuing combat operations." "What kind of forms are they?" Do-hyun asked, sipping his coffee calmly. "Let's see." Yun Seo checked the incoming data. "Application for permission to be shot at, request for approval to lose a space battle, and pre-surrender documentation package." Do-hyun stood up and straightened his uniform. "Send them our response, Ho-jun." Ho-jun pressed a single button on his console. The Persistence fired a special missile toward the bureaucracy bombs. When it exploded, it released a cloud of what looked like space shredders. "What was that?" the Regelian officer demanded, watching his precious paperwork being turned into confetti. "That," Do-hyun said with a smile, "was our official document disposal unit. We find it helps reduce unnecessary paperwork." The Regelian officer's face turned pale blue with shock. But, those forms weren't approved for shredding. You need to fill out a document destruction request form first." "Would you like us to submit that form now?" Do-hyun asked innocently. "We can send it along with our next wave of missiles." The enemy officer fainted, overwhelmed by such a blatant disregard for proper documentation procedures. His last conscious action was to start filling out an unexpected medical emergency during combat form. "Captain," Jae-ho reported, "the human fleet is in position for Phase 4. Should we proceed with Operation Coffee Break?" Do-hyun looked at his empty coffee mug and smiled. "Perfect timing. I could use a refill anyway." He turned to his crew. "Let's show these bureaucrats what happens when humans take a synchronized snack break in the middle of a battle." The crew grinned as they prepared for their next move. In all of galactic history, no one had ever seen what was about to happen next, and the Regelians definitely didn't have a form for it. At exactly 15 o'clock hours ship time, all 12 human vessels did something that made the Regelian fleet sensors go haywire. They turned on their break room coffee makers at the same time. Broadcasting coffee preparation protocols on all frequencies, Yun Seo announced with a grin. She switched on the ship's external cameras, making sure the enemy could see the entire crew of the Persistence gathering for their afternoon break. "Status report on Operation Coffee Break," Do-hyun ordered, walking to the small break room just off the bridge. The rest of the bridge crew followed him, leaving their stations on autopilot. "The Regelians are completely confused," Jae-ho reported, checking his tablet while waiting for the coffee machine. "Their sensors detect high-energy emissions from our ships, but they can't identify the source. They think we're powering up some kind of super weapon." Soo-jin, the chief medical officer, joined them in the break room. She had brought her special collection of Earth snacks, cookies, chips, and something she called extra spicy death peppers. "Should we show them our snacks too?" she asked, arranging the treats on a table. "The peppers alone might make them call for a quarantine fleet." "Incoming transmission," Yun Seo said, checking her portable communicator. "The Regellians are demanding to know what kind of military ceremony we're performing." Do-hyun picked up his favorite coffee mug and held it where the external cameras could see it. "Tell them this is a sacred human tradition. We call it the coffee break protocol." The crew tried not to laugh as they watched the enemy's reaction on their tablets. The Regellian ships had stopped all movement, their sensors focused entirely on the humans' break rooms. "They're analyzing every detail," Minji reported between sips of coffee. "3 different committees are trying to decode the significance of dunking cookies in coffee." "Sir," Sang-mei called out, "you need to see this. They're attempting to recreate our ritual to understand it better." The main screen in the break room showed various Regellian ships trying to copy what they thought was a complex military maneuver. Some crews were holding their tentacles in the same way humans held coffee cups. Others were attempting to replicate the action of dunking cookies, using their official manuals as substitutes. "Should we show them what happens when humans consume caffeine?" Ta-Wan suggested with a mischievous smile. Do-hyun nodded. "Su-jin, would you do the honors?" The medical officer activated her medical scanner and pointed it at the captain. Broadcasting the captain's vital signs now, particularly his caffeine tolerance levels. The reaction was immediate. Alarms went off across the Regellian fleet as their medical officers received the data. "They're saying it's impossible." Yun Seo translated the incoming messages. "According to their medical databases, we should be dead from this level of stimulant consumption." Hajun raised his cup. "Wait until they see what happens when we bring out the energy drinks." "New development," Jae-ho announced, looking at his tablet. "They're convening an emergency session of the Xenobiological Hazards Committee. Apparently, they've classified coffee as a Class 1 biological weapon." The crew watched as the Regellian fleet scrambled to respond to this new threat. Some ships began backing away slowly. Others were frantically updating their threat assessment protocols to include hot beverages. "They're requesting data on our coffee consumption rates," Yun Seo said. "Should I tell them about the ship's monthly coffee budget?" "Send them everything," Do-hyun ordered with a smile, "including our requisition forms for premium coffee beans." The information caused even more chaos. The Regellian accountants couldn't understand why any military would spend so much on beverages. 3 ships had to power down completely while their crews attended emergency budget review meetings. "Captain," Su-jin said, checking the time, "break's almost over. Should we show them what humans are like after a coffee and sugar rush?" Do-hyun finished his coffee and set down his mug. "Absolutely. All hands, return to stations. Time to show the galaxy why you should never interrupt a human's coffee break." The crew headed back to their posts, leaving behind empty cups and half-eaten snacks. On their screens, they could see the Regellian fleet still trying to understand what they had just witnessed. They had no idea that the worst was yet to come. Humans on a caffeine high. The effects of coffee and snacks energized the human crews. Do-hyun watched his crew practically bouncing in their seats, ready for action. This was the moment they had been waiting for, attacking with full caffeine power. "All ships report ready for the final push," Jae-ho announced, his fingers drumming quickly on his console. "Everyone's properly caffeinated." "Excellent." Do-hyun stood up, feeling the coffee energy himself. "Jae-hwa, plot our course through that nearby asteroid field. Let's see how well their perfect formations work in there." Jae-hwa, who had eaten 3 cookies and 2 spicy peppers during the break, grinned as she programmed the course. "They'll have to file environmental hazard forms for each asteroid, sir." The 12 human ships moved as one, darting toward the dense field of space rocks. Behind them, the Regellian fleet scrambled to respond. "They're trying to follow us," Minji reported, "but first they need approval from the Asteroid Navigation Safety Board. The board members are currently on their mandatory 15-minute meditation break." Incoming message, Yun-Seo called out. They're trying to surrender. But, oh, this is funny. They can't find the right form. The main screen showed various Regellian ships bumping into each other as they searched their databases. Some had opened so many forms on their screens that their pilots couldn't see where they were going. Sir, Hajun said from weapons, still munching on a cookie, remember those special torpedoes we were saving? The ones filled with glitter. Do-hyun nodded. Launch them. Let's make this final sparkly. Hajun pressed the launch button with enthusiasm. Dozens of torpedoes shot out from the human ships, exploding into clouds of shimmering glitter that stuck to the Regellian ship's sensors. Their sensor officers are having fits, Sang Mai reported, watching the enemy communications. They're filing complaints about non-regulation decorative materials in a combat zone. The Persistence led the human fleet in a complex dance through the asteroid field. They spun between rocks, dove under floating ice chunks, and looped around the larger asteroids. Behind them, the Regellian fleet fell into total chaos. 3 more ships just stopped to fill out collision insurance forms, Jae-ho said, checking his displays. 5 others are demanding an environmental impact study before entering the asteroid field. And the best part, Taiwan added from engineering. The glitter is interfering with their communications. Every time they try to send a message, it comes out as a party invitation. Do-hyun watched as more enemy ships gave up trying to follow them. Some were now actively fleeing, their crews too overwhelmed by the combination of irregular tactics, improper documentation, and unauthorized sparkly substances. Captain, Su-jin called from her medical station. I'm picking up some interesting readings from the Regellian crews. Their stress levels are off the charts. Apparently, watching humans ignore proper procedures while hopped up on caffeine is causing them physical distress. Send them our medical records, Do-hyun ordered with a smile. Show them what happens when humans drink energy drinks after coffee. The effect was immediate. Dozens of Regellian ships turned around and fled at full speed. Their medical officers had taken one look at the human caffeine tolerance levels and declared a health emergency. Sir, Yun-Seo said, trying not to laugh, the Regellian commander is sending a final message. He says they're retreating to, and I quote, preserve the sanity of our crews in the face of these regulation-defying caffeinated chaos agents. The bridge crew cheered as they watched the mighty Regellian fleet scatter in all directions. Some ships were still covered in glitter, others were tangled in space bubble gum, and all of them were buried in unfinished paperwork. Well done, everyone, Do-hyun said, raising his coffee mug in salute. I think it's time for another coffee break. We should celebrate our victory while the Regellians file their defeat documentation. How long will that take? Jae-ho asked. According to their regulations, Min-ji answered with a grin. About 6 months. And that's just for the preliminary reports. 1 week after the battle, Captain Do-hyun sat in his office aboard the Persistence, writing his official report. Unlike the Regellians, who were still filing their preliminary defeat documentation, his entire report was just 1 page long. Battle report, he typed. We won. Coffee was involved. End of report. Just then, his door chimed. Ji-ho entered, carrying a tablet, and trying not to laugh. Sir, you need to see this, he said. We just got an update from the Galactic Council. Do-hyun took the tablet and started reading. His smile grew wider with each line. The Regellians have filed so much paperwork about their defeat that they've crashed the Council's main computer system, Jae-ho explained. They've submitted 47,892 forms, 12,345 incident reports, and 1 request for emotional compensation due to exposure to unauthorized glitter. What about their commander? Do-hyun asked, remembering Hansol and his love of regulations. Even better, Jae-ho said. He submitted a 500-page analysis titled The Psychological Impact of Watching Humans Drink Hot Beverages During Combat. It's now required reading at the Regellian Military Academy. The captain laughed and stood up to get some coffee from his personal machine. As he did, another message appeared on the tablet. "Breaking news," he read aloud. "The Galactic Council has officially classified humans as extremely irregular combat entities. Apparently, our disregard for proper battle procedures makes us too unpredictable to fight." "They're not wrong," Jaho said with a grin. "Should I tell the crew about our new classification?" "Put it on the ship's bulletin board," Do-hyun replied, "right next to our new coffee order form." Later that day, Do-hyun called a meeting in the ship's break room. The entire bridge crew gathered around, drinking coffee and eating snacks as they celebrated their victory. "I have some announcements," Do-hyun said, holding up his famous dented coffee mug. "First, the Regellian fleet has officially banned coffee from all their ships. They're calling it a chaos-inducing performance enhancement substance. We should send them our energy drink collection next," Tai-1 suggested, making everyone laugh. "Second," Do-hyun continued, "our glitter torpedoes were so effective that 3 other alien species have requested protection treaties with Earth. They don't want to risk getting hit with what they're calling our psychological warfare sparkles." Soo-jin raised her hand. "What about my spicy peppers? The ones that made the Regellian censors think we were carrying biological weapons. The Council has classified them as weapons of mass distraction," Minji answered, checking her security reports, "along with our coffee, cookies, and something they call irregular human break time protocols." Yun-seo, who was monitoring communications as always, suddenly straightened in her chair. "Captain, incoming message from Earth Command." The crew gathered around the main screen as Admiral Song's face appeared. The Admiral was trying to look serious, but they could see she was fighting back a smile. "Captain Do-hyun," she said formally, "I just finished reading your 1-page battle report, the shortest in Earth Defense Force history." "I believed in being efficient, Admiral," Do-hyun replied innocently. "Indeed." The Admiral's smile finally broke through. "The Galactic Council spent 6 hours trying to find the rest of your report. They couldn't believe anyone could document a battle in less than 1,000 pages. Should I add more details?" Do-hyun asked. "Perhaps mention how many cookies we ate." "No need," Admiral Song laughed. "Your report has been classified as dangerously concise and is now being studied by xenopsychologists across the galaxy. Apparently, the ability to write short reports is another scary human trait." The crew celebrated their final victory, becoming the first species to terrify the galaxy not with advanced weapons or superior numbers, but with coffee breaks, glitter, and minimal paperwork. "You know what this means," Do-hyun said to his crew as the Admiral's transmission ended. "Time for another coffee break. After all, we have a reputation to maintain." And so, the legend of the 12 human ships grew, teaching the galaxy an important lesson. Never underestimate caffeinated Deathworlders who hate paperwork.